When most people hear the word transgender, one word often comes to mind: transition. And yes, transitioning, whether socially, medically, or legally, is a significant part of many trans people's journeys. But here's the truth: being trans isn't only about transition. It's about identity. It's about self-realization, joy, complexity, and living authentically, often in the face of enormous pressure to conform. Many people think being trans is about becoming someone else. In reality, it's about becoming visible as who we've always been inside. For some, that might mean changing names, pronouns, clothing, or undergoing hormone therapy or surgeries. But for others, none of those steps are necessary for their identity to be real. Being trans isn't defined by your body, it's defined by your understanding of yourself. Transition might help bring that truth to the surface. But it's not a requirement. Think of it this way. Just because someone hasn't moved houses doesn't mean they aren't still home. In the same way, you don't need to transition to be truly, fully trans. Today, let's go beyond the transition. Let's talk about what being trans really means. Being trans is about identity, not just transition. When people hear the word transgender, many immediately think of physical changes, hormones, surgeries, name or pronoun changes. These aspects of transition are real and significant, but they're just part of the story. Being trans isn't defined by a medical procedure or a checklist of milestones. At its core, being trans is about identity, the deeply personal understanding of who you are, and the journey of aligning your inner truth with how you live and are seen in the world. For many trans people, the desire to transition stems from a need to be seen and understood for who they truly are. This might include social changes, like using a different name, dressing in a way that feels affirming, or coming out to friends and family. For others, it may involve medical transition, such as hormone therapy or surgeries. These steps can be incredibly meaningful and even life-saving. But they are not the sole markers of a trans identity. In fact, not all trans people transition, and not all want to. Some can't, due to financial, medical, or legal barriers. Others simply choose not to because they are already comfortable in their identity without changing their appearance or body. Their identity is no less valid. Being trans is about that inner sense of self, your gender identity, not how closely your appearance aligns with societal expectations of male or female. It's important to understand that gender identity exists independently of the steps someone has taken, or hasn't taken, to transition. Many trans people know who they are long before they have the means or safety to express it outwardly. For some, that internal knowledge is powerful enough to carry them through years of misunderstanding or erasure. And when the world does finally catch up, when someone calls them by the right name, uses the right pronouns, or sees them as they see themselves, it's not just a moment of recognition. It's a moment of liberation. Society often focuses so much on the before and after stories of transition that it misses the point. Being trans isn't about changing into someone new. It's about uncovering and expressing the truth of who someone has always been. That truth might have been hidden, repressed, or misunderstood, but it was always there. Transitioning can help bring it to the surface, but the identity was never dependent on it. Understanding this shifts the conversation. Instead of measuring legitimacy by visible changes, we begin to honor people's self-knowledge. We start listening instead of inspecting. We make room for a broader, more inclusive definition of gender that celebrates authenticity in all its forms. In the end, being trans is not about fitting into someone else's mold. It's about breaking free of the mold altogether. It's about aligning your life with your truth, and living that truth fully, boldly, and unapologetically. Trans lives are rich and diverse. Too often, public conversations about transgender people focus narrowly on gender identity and transition. While gender is an important part of trans individuals' lives, it is far from the only defining feature. In truth, trans lives are rich, varied, and complex, full of the same hopes, dreams, struggles, and joys as anyone else's. Trans people are not just their gender identities, they are professionals, artists, parents, partners, friends, leaders, and creators of vibrant communities. One of the most harmful myths is that being trans is all-consuming, that it overshadows every other aspect of life. But this view reduces people to a single identity, when in fact, trans people live full and multifaceted lives. They build careers in medicine, technology, education, the arts, law, and every field imaginable. From CEOs to baristas, from engineers to activists, trans individuals are contributing meaningfully to society in countless ways. They are innovators and problem solvers, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers, not because they are trans, but because they are talented, motivated, and driven like anyone else. Beyond their work, trans people form families, sometimes biological, sometimes chosen. Many are loving parents raising children in supportive, inclusive environments. Others find family among close-knit groups of friends and allies who affirm and celebrate their identities. These chosen families often become powerful networks of support and resilience, especially in the face of discrimination or rejection. The bonds forged within these communities are deep and enduring, built on shared experiences and mutual care. Love and relationships are also a vital part of trans lives. Trans people fall in love, build lasting partnerships, go on dates, experience heartbreak, and find companionship, just like anyone else. They navigate the same emotional landscapes of connection, vulnerability, and intimacy. And while stigma and misunderstanding can sometimes complicate dating, many trans people find fulfilling relationships with partners who see and appreciate them for who they are. Trans people also play critical roles in their communities. They are volunteers, organizers, caregivers, and advocates. They fight not only for trans rights but for justice and equity in all forms, racial, economic, environmental, and beyond. Their activism is often rooted in lived experience and a powerful vision for a more inclusive world. But their contributions aren't limited to resistance, they also build joy, culture, and belonging. From drag shows to poetry readings, mutual aid to mentoring youth, trans communities are rich with creativity and connection. It's essential to move beyond stereotypes and start seeing trans people as whole human beings. Not every trans story is about struggle or transformation. Many are stories of ordinary, beautiful lives, lives full of complexity, depth, and meaning. To honor trans people is to recognize the fullness of their experiences, not just the parts that fit a narrative of transition or trauma. In short, trans lives are not defined by gender alone. They are shaped by dreams, relationships, work, creativity, and purpose. To truly support the trans community, we must celebrate that richness and embrace the full humanity of trans people in all their diversity. The journey doesn't end after transition. For many transgender people, the process of transition, whether social, medical, or legal, can be an affirming and even life-saving step. It marks a powerful moment of self-recognition, a declaration of identity, and often a sense of relief after years of internal struggle. However, it's important to understand that transition is not the end of the journey, it's just one part of it. What comes afterward is a complex, ongoing process of growth, adaptation, and self-discovery. Once the visible changes have taken place, be it a new name, gender marker, voice, or physical appearance, many people on the outside assume the story is over. But for most trans individuals, real life begins in that after. That's when they must navigate a world that may still question or reject their truth. The challenges do not disappear with a new ID or a successful surgery. In fact, many new challenges emerge: discrimination at work, barriers to healthcare, legal battles, or social exclusion. Legally, even something as seemingly simple as updating identification documents can be a bureaucratic nightmare, especially in places with restrictive laws. Trans people may face invasive questions, delays, and outright denials. Access to affirming healthcare, including hormones and post-transition support, is still limited or stigmatized in many regions. These systems often make it harder to fully live as oneself, even after transition. Socially and emotionally, post-transition life can be both empowering and isolating. Some people lose family, friends, or community support when they come out or complete their transition. Others may feel pressure to pass or to conform to rigid gender roles to gain acceptance. And even when everything aligns externally, there can still be lingering internal struggles, feelings of dysphoria, anxiety, or the weight of expectations. Transition doesn't magically erase trauma, self-doubt, or societal pressure. Yet, despite these challenges, post-transition life is also filled with profound moments of joy and personal growth. Living authentically allows for a kind of peace that many trans people have never felt before. There's freedom in being seen as who you truly are, in no longer hiding or pretending. Many discover new forms of confidence, creativity, and strength. Relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or familial, can grow deeper and more genuine when built on honesty and self-love. Moreover, transitioning often opens the door to new communities and connections. Many trans people find support networks, chosen families, and friendships that offer safety, affirmation, and solidarity. Through these relationships and experiences, many continue to evolve, learning, healing, and shaping identities that are fluid, layered, and dynamic. Ultimately, transition is not a destination. It is a milestone on a lifelong path. The journey beyond it is filled with ongoing battles, but also beauty. It's about rebuilding, rediscovering, and reclaiming space in the world. To honor trans people fully, we must recognize their lives not just at the moment of transformation, but in all the complexity that comes after. Because the story doesn't end, it continues, and it deserves to be seen in all its richness. Visibility isn't the whole story. In recent years, transgender visibility in the media has grown dramatically. From magazine covers to documentaries, social media influencers to high-profile celebrities, stories of trans people are reaching wider audiences than ever before. While this visibility is a powerful step forward in representation, it often comes with a narrow lens. The spotlight frequently centers on dramatic before and after transformations or the lives of a few famous individuals, giving the impression that visibility is the ultimate goal of trans existence. But for most transgender people, the real story is not found in headlines, it's found in the quiet, authentic moments of everyday life. Media narratives often prioritize the transition story, treating it as a spectacle. These stories tend to highlight physical changes and frame trans identity as something extraordinary or unusual. While these narratives can be empowering for some, they risk reinforcing the idea that trans people are only worth noticing if their stories are dramatic, inspiring, or full of transformation. This focus can unintentionally overshadow the reality that being trans is not about performance or publicity, it's about living as oneself, honestly and fully. For the vast majority of trans people, life isn't lived in the limelight. It's lived in early morning commutes, quiet dinners, school drop-offs, work meetings, and late-night conversations with friends. It's lived in community centers, coffee shops, places of worship, and homes filled with laughter, messiness, and love. These moments may not make headlines, but they are just as meaningful, if not more so. They represent a kind of freedom, the ability to simply exist as oneself without having to explain, prove, or justify anything. Authenticity doesn't require visibility. In fact, for some trans people, visibility can be a double-edged sword. Being seen can lead to affirmation, but it can also bring unwanted attention, discrimination, or even danger. Some choose to be publicly out and vocal, others prefer privacy and safety. Both are valid. The decision to be visible, or not, is deeply personal, and it doesn't make someone more or less trans. Moreover, centering only the stories of trans celebrities creates a distorted view of the community. While their platforms are valuable, they do not represent every trans experience. They often have access to resources, support, and protections that many trans people, especially trans people of color, disabled trans people, or those living in poverty, do not. To understand the full picture, we must listen to voices that exist outside the spotlight, too. Ultimately, the richness of trans lives cannot be captured by one story, one person, or one image. Visibility is only part of the picture. It can open doors, challenge stereotypes, and inspire change, but it's not the destination. The true heart of the trans experience lies in everyday authenticity, in the freedom to live without performance, and in the right to shape one's own narrative, whether the world is watching or not. To truly support the trans community, we must go beyond visibility and honor the full, complex, and ordinary beauty of trans lives. Being trans is valid, regardless of medical or legal steps. There's a widespread misconception that to be truly transgender, one must undergo medical procedures, take hormones, or change legal documents. Media and pop culture often reinforce this idea by focusing on dramatic transformations and physical milestones. But the truth is, being trans is valid regardless of whether someone chooses, or is able, to take any medical or legal steps. Gender identity is an internal experience, not something that requires external proof or approval. For many trans people, transitioning medically or legally can be affirming, even life-saving. Hormone therapy, surgeries, or legal name and gender marker changes can help individuals align their outer lives with their inner truth. But not everyone has access to these options. Financial barriers, lack of healthcare, restrictive laws, unsupportive environments, and personal safety concerns can all stand in the way. Even when access is available, some trans people simply choose not to undergo medical or legal changes because their sense of self does not require it. That decision does not make them any less trans. Transness is not a checklist. It's not something you earn after a certain number of doctor visits, court forms, or operations. It's an identity rooted in self-understanding and self-recognition. If someone knows they are not the gender they were assigned at birth, and identifies as a different gender, then they are trans, no matter what steps they have or haven't taken. This understanding is crucial to respecting the diversity and dignity of the trans community. Relying on medical or legal status as a way to validate someone's gender can also cause real harm. It puts unnecessary pressure on individuals to prove their identity in a world that is already filled with judgment and misunderstanding. It also marginalizes non-binary and gender non-conforming people, whose identities may not fit neatly into male or female boxes, and for whom medical transition may not be desired or appropriate. Gatekeeping trans identity based on physical changes upholds rigid norms and erases the fluidity of gender. Moreover, validating trans people only after they've completed certain steps reinforces the idea that being trans is all about appearance. But true affirmation comes from recognizing the person, not the process. It means listening when someone tells you who they are, believing them, and respecting their identity, without asking invasive questions or demanding proof. In truth, the trans experience is deeply personal and varied. Each person's path is shaped by their own values, goals, and circumstances. No two journeys are the same, and that's not just acceptable, it's something to celebrate. Embracing this diversity allows for a richer, more inclusive understanding of what it means to be trans. In the end, being trans is not about how much someone has changed, but about how fully they know themselves. Every trans person, regardless of their transition status, deserves to be seen, respected, and affirmed. Their identity is real. Their truth is valid. No surgeries or documents required. So what does it really mean to be trans? It means living in alignment with your truth, even when the world tells you not to. It means discovering and rediscovering yourself over and over again. It means rewriting the rules, embracing fluidity, and reminding the world that gender is not a box, it's a spectrum. It means that beyond hormones and surgeries, beyond documents and debates, beyond all the noise, there are real people, real stories, real lives. And they deserve to be seen, heard, and celebrated. So if you're listening to this today, whether you're trans, questioning, or simply curious, know this. Your identity is valid. Your journey is your own. And being trans isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming you. Beyond the transition, there is life. And it's beautiful. Fade out with gentle music and a final slide. Trans lives matter. Trans joy is real. Support. Listen. Learn.